Thank you, Mas Taki, for the introduction. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished participants, esteemed guests, for our Microeconomica Talks, MET, series number 7, seminar volume 4 by Microeconomic Dashboard, FEB-UGM. It is a pleasure for me, Wisnu Nugroho, as your moderator for today, to discuss our paramount importance, our topics, which is our younger generations, urgency and challenges in expanding worker social protections in Indonesia. As we convene today, we know that we have to admit that 67% our individuals actually entering productive age bracket, which is 15 to 64 years old. And then we know that the numbers is roughly 180 million people actually in that productive age brackets. We know from the report from IMF, the increasing of young workers actually increase productivity of real output by 5%, but we know there's some challenges. As we speak today, like 20% of our young workers actually unemployed because of lack of educations, lack of skills, and unmatched interest. And then we also know a report from ILO as well, 60% of our young workers actually work differently from their educations, so not in accordance to educations. So today we are a pleasure to have Mr. or Dr. Ippei Tsuruga from ILO. Dr. Ippei has a distinguished background, and then he has managed a lot of social protection program in Indonesia and or research on social protection program in Indonesia, Vietnam, and Myanmar, and also has a lot of contributions on social programs in ASEAN regions on regional, also global levels. Dr. Ippei also expertise spans policy discussions, research activities from unemployment benefits, maternity benefits, sickness benefits, and extension of social protections to workers in the informal economy. His extensive career includes role at the ILO Country Office for the ASEAN the Pacifics in Jakarta, Social Protection Department, and Japan International Cooperation Agency, JICA, at Washington DC office, where he contributed research in Kenya, Nigeria, and Somalia. Without further ado, let's give a warm welcome to Dr. Ippei Tsuruga to give his presentation and talk. Please time and locations here. You can sit, you can stand. Okay. As you're comfortable.
Thank you. Okay. Maybe I sit first and stand later. Selamat pagi. My bahasa Indonesia is not very good, so I try to speak in English. Is it okay sound? Yeah. I can only speak very little. Until they fix the microphone, I can speak a little bit bahasa Indonesia, I know. Saya makan soto sapi di Pagadiran. You know this place? If you don't know this place, you should try. That was very good. Only 15,000 rupiah in the morning. Is it okay? Okay. So I'm originally coming from Japan, but I've been working for the ILO for more than 8 years and always working on social security. If you don't have the slides, you can download from this QR code, because I'm afraid my slides have very small fonts. I didn't expect many people to join my session, so my font is so small. I've been working for Indonesia more than 5 years. I started working for Indonesia in 2018, originally from Bangkok, remotely. And then I moved to Indonesia in Jakarta in probably I don't need this. Do I need this? 2020. Yeah. Check. No, I need this. You need Okay. Okay. I can speak like this. So I moved to Jakarta in 2020 and then started working in Indonesia. but I've been working on the social security policies more than 5 years for Indonesia. So I hope I can share with you the overall social security concepts, particularly for workers. And then I talk more about your issues, that is pension. Probably you don't think about pension now, but after the session today, you may feel a little bit concerned, worry about your life. That's my goal, okay? Again, my name is Ippei Tsuruga, Social Protection Program Manager from the ILO. Have you heard of Social Security, Social Protection, anything about it? Of course you know, right? But what is that? Is it kesehatan, jaminan kesehatan nasional, or PKH, PP Jamsos? People talk about the social protection using the same word, social security, Jamsos, different words, but think about different things. So let me start by conceptualizing social security a little bit. When the ILO person comes to talk about social security, we have 9 social security benefits in our mind. 9. These benefits should be provided by the state governments in any countries and protect the one person's life cycle until they die from the birth. So when women become pregnant, they should be entitled to take maternity leave. And who pays maternity leave benefits? The state from Social Security funds. When they become sick during work, they can take a sick leave. Then Social Security should pay sick leave benefits. When they become unemployed, fired by the factories, farms, companies, then Social Security covers. And when they get injured in the workplace, in the construction works, or Grab drivers, when they get accident, the Social Security should pay. Medical care, you know, JKN. Family benefits, child benefits, when you small children, and if you're poor, PKH provides you benefits. Invalidity is the same as disability benefits. Death benefit or survivor's benefit, if you die in other countries, probably your parents can receive benefits or children can receive benefits from Social Security. When you become old, change, yeah? Yeah. This is better. When you become old, everyone will receive old age benefits from Social Security. So you don't have to worry about becoming old. So covering these life cycle risk, we said risk because it comes from the mentality of insurance mindset. Like, you need to take any kinds of risk in your life cycle. You don't know when you die, when you get sick, when you get maternity leave. But someone need to compensate your income because you will lose your income and for your consumption. So in short, everyone has similar kinds of lifetime risk, and that comes in unexpected time. You don't know when you become pregnant, when you don't know when you are fired, when you die, you don't know. When you get sick, you don't know. And then it costs money for you because you need to probably pay for medical care or you need to pay for your food for tomorrow, right? So these are the risks and the costs and some of the concepts behind Social Security. So why don't we then share such risks by pooling the risk? How? There are 2 ways. You pay contributions to BPJS, that is the Social Security Fund, based on your payroll. When you start working, you will probably see your payslip every month. And your payslip will show you how much BPJS take money from you. And this money is saved in a kind of common account. It's one pool. You can imagine the swimming pool and everyone tap the money there. So it's much larger pool than your bank saving, because your bank saving is kind of small, right? So if your contribution is too small, you may get a little bit less if it's from your bank. But if the pool is bigger, like BPJS fund, your pool is actually bigger because everyone also pay money there. So Indonesia has a beautiful concept I heard, gotong royong. So the concept here is a gotong royong in a bigger pool. So that's the financing on Social Security, if you imagine. The other approach of financing Social Security is a tax. I said there are only two ways I can think about Social Security. Social Security is a national level program. Either Social Security contributions based on your payslip, wage, or tax. Tax can take many forms, right? You have tobacco tax, and you have oil tax, you have income tax, corporate tax, and everyone pays, depending on the rules, to the government. The difference between Social Security Contribution Fund and the tax fund, who manage the fund. If you pay contribution to BPJS, it's not the government money. Why? Because institutionally, BPJS has three tripartite, we call it tripartite board members, supervisory boards, which is a good thing. Workers' representatives, employers' representatives, and government representatives sit there and monitor the spending of funds. So this is your money. When you pay tax to the government, that's not directly managed by your representatives. So there are two different institutional, there are two different authorities in terms of institutions. And what can funds do? The Social Security benefits take two forms, cash or in-kind. In-kind means services or goods. When you get injured, you may get some appliances or devices to help you walk, or most of the time you get cash in your bank account. So that is the basic concept of Social Security when we talk about social protection, Social Security. These are the same in the international sense. Some people differentiate Social Security, social protection, but now you understand. Probably it means something, or it means the same. You need to ask that person, what do you mean by social protection? Because different people use this terminology differently. But if you read the ILO book, we use in the same way. Social Security, social protection. Indonesia, it's different. When you say Jamsos, it means probably BPJS schemes. If you say Bantuan Sosial, it's social assistance, fully tax funded by the states, PKH, for example. So you need to understand this difference in terminologies when you read the book. What does it mean by that? Because many people use differently. As I said, it's a little bit too small, but if the ILO person talk about Social Security, there are 9 Social Security schemes. Your grandfather generations in 1952, you work as employers and the government representative agree on the minimum Social Security standards. What level of Social Security benefits should be paid in what case? 9 cases. And then ILO provide recommendations policy recommendations to improve Social Security system based on this guidebook. This is a guidebook. So whatever I talk is based on the guidebook, which is internationally agreed. Oops, sorry. So as you know, in Indonesia, if people work in the company, there is a scheme JKN for medical care, JKP, unemployment benefit by BPJS TK, JP, JHT for old age survivors and disability benefits and by BPJS TK, and another one called JKK and JKM in case you get injured or death during work in the workplace. And employers are obliged to pay maternity leave and the sickness benefits when they take sick leave or maternity leave under the labor law. So Indonesia doesn't have these two schemes in social security system. And clicker doesn't work. Yeah, okay, moving, yeah. But if you're self-employed, you have different arrangements in the country. Or if you are Grab drivers, you have different arrangements. Some schemes you're not entitled to participate in the scheme. If we look at Southeast Asia, Indonesia has 7 schemes out of 9 social security branches. As I said, maternity leave, sickness benefits leaves are not part of social security system in Indonesia. Malaysia and Indonesia don't have maternity leave social security benefits. But so if you see this triangle, that means the employer is obliged to do so, cover the benefits. If you see circle, these countries have social security benefits. Cross, these countries don't have social security benefits. So the general direction of social protection reforms in any countries you see here is that to replace cross by circle or triangle by circle. So that is a general direction we always think, because social security benefit is more certain than individual employers' liability. Because if your employers don't have money, your employers may negotiate you. Can you resign? And then after you come back from maternity leave, I can employ you again. That happens. But if it's social security, it never happens because BPJS will pay you and the employers don't have to negotiate with you. So it's more certain. So the general direction for us when we provide a recommendation is to replace all these triangle or cross by circle by social security. Hey, have you ever seen this slide? This is my slide, but everyone copy and paste and different PowerPoints. But this basically shows the legal obligation in Indonesia. When you start working, you need to probably check what is your status of employment. If your BPJS employment schemes are not voluntary in many cases, as you see, mandatory means employers are obliged to register you workers. In case of JKK, employment injury benefits, death benefits, employers must, and JKP, JHT, JP, large enterprises, medium enterprises must. Small enterprises are not obliged to register them with the pension. Micro enterprises are not obliged to register them in JKP and JHT and JP. So there are voluntary components and mandatory components. But if you have a choice, you don't want to pay additional tax or contributions, right? So in reality, if the scheme is voluntary, we don't expect the scheme will have wide coverage. So this is the legal challenge we see in these countries. BPJS is probably doing a great job, but if you see the coverage is very low, it's probably because of these legal limitations. Many employers are not obliged to register their workers with JP, JHT, JKP. But you are not coming from Faculty of Law, so probably I will talk more about numbers later, okay? The experts called the actuaries can calculate the risks that I presented in the previous slide in concepts, but they can actually calculate the contribution rate, how much BPJs need to collect money from what different kinds of employees and employers. And this is the current contribution rate. So social security benefits are not free of charge. If you think about social security as free, you probably only talk about Bantu Social. But it's actually not free though, because people are still paying tax. You pay, for example, in this morning I had soto, but I paid 20,000 rupiah. Probably some amounts of my 20,000 rupiah goes to the government tax, right? Because this company, Warung Soto, probably pay tax. I don't know if they pay or not, though, but they probably pay. Then actually I'm indirectly paying tax, and this money can be used for Bantu Social. But you are not recipients of Bantu Social because you're not poor. So you see the linkage between financing tax and then also contribution here. Contribution, this is a contribution is kind of a similar concept to premium for private insurance company. For example, in total, if you work in the big companies, you pay 4% of your monthly salary. So when you receive your pay slip, your net salary is actually already deducted by BPJS, 4%, based on your salary, plus tax, yeah? So if you are coming from economic department, you probably understand. What about the absolute term? 4% of rich people and 4% of poor people. And the same 4% applies. But who pays more in absolute term? The rich people pay, right? Because if you earn 10 million rupiah, 4% of 10 million rupiah is much higher than 4% of 1 million rupiah. So here there is a kind of sense of gotong royong. You get the sense of this? I don't know. In the relative term, rich people pay more. And even low-income earners can pay some, right? But based on the same proportion, because it's based on 4%. That is the concept of jaminan social, based on contributions. And gotong royong in a sense, no? You're not nodding, I don't know if I'm correct. So the concept is kind of fairness. Everyone pay 4%. And then if you pay 4%, you have entitlement to claim the benefits. But in many cases, jaminan social's benefit is based on percentage of your previous earnings. I can come back to you later. If you're fired, JKP will pay you 45% of your previous earnings. So if you're a high earner, you pay more through contributions, right? In absolute term. But what you get will be also higher, 45% of your previous earnings. But if you are poor or lower earners, probably you pay less and you earn a little bit less. So that's the formula here. If you're a low earner, your consumption requirements are slightly lower, much lower probably than high earners. So that's why we always refer to the previous earnings of one's salary. This is a kind of different benefit model from Bantu Social, for example. Bantu Social is usually provided with a fixed amount because it refers to poverty line usually. So the government decides how much you need. But jaminan social's concept here is that the government doesn't know how much you need. So let's based on your previous earnings and how many months or years you contributed. So here there is a concept of consumption smoothing. I don't know. This is probably economic theory, no? I don't know about economic theory, but one of the function of social security benefits is economic smoothing consumption. Sorry. Non-wage earners pays different amounts, but I will probably skip that. Construction workers also pay in different arrangement in Indonesia, but I can also skip that. I can come back if you like. How many minutes do I have? So let's talk about pension. Pension in Indonesian sense is a retirement, right? In Bahasa Indonesia. But I'm going to talk about after your retirement. So after your retirement, I'm sure you don't think about it today because you're too young to think about. But what about your parents? If I'm very pessimistic, and going back to the first concept notes slide, your parents may be the risk for you. And then people will probably be against. They're precious, and the children's obligation to take care of them. That's my Japanese sense, and I'm sure that's your sense. But let's talk about economics here. Let me introduce myself again. I'm still 39 years old, below 40, and a little bit, I don't know if you see me old or young. My father is 71, my mother is 68. And all my grandfathers, grandmothers lived quite long, as you see, and 3 of them died, but one of my grandfathers is still alive, 97 years old. I have one younger brother, and my grandfather's generations have like 10 brothers and sisters, one of them, each of them. So probably I don't know how many exists, I mean, how many are alive there. But probably I have like 30 grandfather, mother generations. I don't know many of them. What about you? You can think about your family trees, okay? That's a session now. But then the question is, who take care of who? In my, you see 1970 and 2000s, that's my parents' generation, when they were still working age. And 2010 to 2040, that's my generation, working age. When my father started working in 1970s, their initial income was 4 million rupiah per month. Quite similar to Indonesia, isn't it? I think, average wage. And they're working in a small cooperative, agriculture cooperative, which was the best job in my town, 6,000 population, only 6,000. And there are 30,000 cattle and livestock in my town. And 99% of populations work in agricultural businesses. Farmers, probably more than half of them are agricultural self-employed farmers. And the rest probably work in town hall, town council, or agricultural cooperative, or related business like truck drivers to ship vegetables to Pasar Tradisional, for example. So that's the composition of our economy, our local economy. So I'm coming from the rural setting. And when my father started working in agriculture cooperative, their first salary was 4 million. And after 30 years, their salary increased to 40 million per month in 2000. And during that time, the bank saving rate was about 5 to 10 in the good time, but on average, probably 5% for 30 years. So what they had to do, my parents had to do, was just to work for long hours and get overtime pay, get more salary by working. So their wage income was quite high. They didn't have any other businesses. And then what they had to do was just save in their bank account, because the interest rate was good. But at the same time, they had a social security contribution, and they had pension contributions for old age. So into Japanese PPJ system, my parents paid for their entire life. 30, 40 years. And then they retire. And my generation, my first wage was about 20 million Japanese rupiah in Japan. And my brother is still working in Japan. He's around my age. And his earning will be probably 40 million, 50 million rupiah. So you don't see much growth in wage. Probably your country is different if you are quite optimistic, but you never know. That's my point. Because I didn't know my wage wouldn't grow much. When I saw my parents' salary slip, I was surprised how much they got and how little we experienced the increase in wage. And then bank interest rate is 0% in my generation. So it's not an option for us to work long hours, get more salaries, and save in the bank. For retirement planning, okay? For retirement planning. And what about my grandfather? I said he's 79, but he still has a regular income. Can you imagine? He has about 8 million rupiah per month in his bank account from Social Security institution. But he doesn't know how to spend money. He's 97, he cannot walk properly. But his, the Social Security Fund, BPJS, keeps sending his money every month, every 2 months. He gets 8 million every month. He doesn't know how to spend money. After spending for food, he pays food. He pays care services himself. But still he has money. He doesn't need money. So he gave me 13 million rupiah last year. But does it happen in Indonesia? Or probably you think you need to save a lot and pay to your parents or grandfathers, no? So what I'm trying to say here is that one lesson from my country or any other European country is always like this. We have fewer children. I have only 2 brothers. My grandfather's generation has probably 30. I cannot pay 30 people. But then who will pay? If we look at the macro level, we need to pay more tax or contributions, as I explained, right? To support each other's people who you don't know. Additionally, you need to save your money in your bank accounts and provide supports to your parents and grandfather's generations. But at the same time, as you see, you may probably experience very little wage growth. I don't know about Indonesia. Indonesia will become number 4 countries in the economy in 2045, according to Bappenas. Golden Indonesia. That's what I read in the news. So probably Indonesia will be much better than my country in the future. But I'm 100% sure your living expenses will be much bigger than today. And children's supports will be limited. How many siblings do you have? You can count, head count, and you compare with how many grandfathers, mother's generations you have. You can compare the trend. In Japan, in 1960s, there was a universal pension scheme that started. When we become 20 years old, all the citizens in Japan are obliged to start paying contributions to, let's say, BPJS funds, all of them. It doesn't matter if you're if you're a housewife or not, if you are unemployed, it doesn't matter. You are obliged as a citizens to pay contributions, certain amount. And my 97-year-old grandfather was 30 years old in 1960s. And then now he has full benefit because after that he paid contributions. So I'm quite happy he did so because I don't have to pay him and he pay me. It's a half joke, but the thing is that I think in Indonesia, we need to reverse the kind of mentality. Now, or in the past, younger generations could support older generations always. But in the future, probably it doesn't happen. I talked to workers leaders. I don't know if you know trade unions. Probably you have students movement, and you may want to join the trade union movement in the future. I don't know. That's one of our counterparts. I talked to trade union and employers associations as well, and governments, and we talk like this, but more a kind of discussion style. And this is one of a common message I receive. My children will support me, so I don't need Social Security. I hope it's a joke, but I receive this question, a comment every time. I hope you will not ask me the same question after I talk about it. But if you see the demographic projections, anyway, you can see BPS everywhere. There is about one person per six older persons in Indonesia today. That ratio will go down to 3 against 1 in 30 years. So when you retire, probably your next generation will suffer in this demographic challenge. So much fewer generations will have to support more older persons. Your students in economic faculties. This is the result of our demographic projections. Today, we have 27 million older persons above age 60. In 30 years' time, in 2050, that number will grow up to 70 million. But you see the little increase in working age populations and the decrease in the number of children, that will make the ratio from 6 to 3 in 30 years' time. This is another comment I received. It's not urgent. Indonesian people enjoy today. We don't save. We enjoy today. That's the usual comment I receive. I hope it's also a joke. But I take it seriously and argue back. There is actually no time to waste. The common indicators we refer to when we talk about the aging speed is something like this. The proportion of persons above age 65 is considered as an indicator here. If that number goes beyond 7%, the demographer usually calls aging society. If it goes beyond 14%, the demographer calls aged society. It's finished, aged, already aged. And this is a comparison. In France and the US, it took 100 years, 70 years for such transitions. Sorry, I don't have the exact numbers. I only have the number of years. Japan took 25 years. And other countries in Southeast Asia, including Indonesia, will take only 20 years around. And the aging starts this year in Indonesia. And that process will be completed in 20 years' time. In 2043, Indonesia will be aged society. So we don't have much time to waste. Why? Because as I explained, someone needs to pay contribution or tax to prepare for the future if you don't have the savings. And it's not possible for us to imagine all the populations are smart enough to save for their living. So if someone in the society has a bad investment managers, most of them actually, then someone needs to cover, because the concept of the state is also gotton royong. If the poor people are there, a lot of poor people in the future, the government will have to take care through tax, through PKH. That's one approach. But most countries in the world collect contributions. for long run, 30 years, and then create the fund before they become aged, so that the country can plan their retirement in the long run. Another one, I have a savings, I can take care of myself. That's another comment. But Indonesian people will live 20 years after their retirement. In the future, that may go up and up. But do you know the corporate retirement age? If you start working in the companies, most companies in this country apply as a 55 years old as a corporate retirement age. And you may lose job after that. But you still have 25 years until you die. Some of you may be lucky enough to live much longer, 90 years, 100 years. But again, the risk here is that you live too long. That's a risk. If you don't have savings, if you don't have any plans, that's the risk from a Social Security expert's perspective. We call it longevity risk. You live too long than expected. And so you run out your savings or any plans you made previously. So so the state need to cover this, but there is no such schemes that covers everyone in this country. But let's go back to very simple mathematics here. You can probably do much better, I'm sure. Let's think about the case. If you need 3 million rupiah at least to pay your food or your basic needs on average for 25 years, you may say it's probably not enough, but let's stick to this, 3 million. And 25 years until you die, average life expectancy. You need 900 million rupiah in your bank account if you don't have Social Security, anything, family support, anything. But what can Social Security benefits provide you if you contribute 30 years in your working time? When you work, you pay 30 years contribution to PPJS without break. And so this is the best case scenarios under the current Social Security system in Indonesia. You work for 30 years without contract break. I cannot imagine many of you can do the same. Usually people have some contract break, but let's say the best case, 30 years contribution without break to BPJS, JHT, Jaminan Hari Tua, and Jaminan Pension. Jaminan Hari Tua can give you about 100 million rupiah in your individual account, plus interest rates compounding, so probably 100 to 150 or a little slightly more. But run that amount, okay? And then JP has different formula. JHT is a kind of saving model, just like your bank savings. As much as you pay, you can get it. What do you pay? That's a JHT concept. So every month, you and your employer will pay 5.7% of your pay slip, wage, in your bank account. So what you will get is 5.7% times 12 months, 30 years contributions plus interest rates. That's what you get. It's like bank savings. And JP has different formula. If you pay 1 year contribution, you get 1% credit. If you pay 30 years, you get 30% credit. So 30% of your previous average income, in this case, I assume 5 million rupiah per month. You earn, your wages is 5 million rupiah per month. So in that case, 1% replacement times 30 years times multiplied by 5 million rupiah. So every month you will receive 1.5 million rupiah. That's a JP formula. Then until you die, you can probably get maximum 450 because this is unlimited. Until you die, you receive benefit. That's a JP. But still, you need to look for 350 million from somewhere. So the Social Security benefits probably not enough, even in the formula. I know why, because the BPJS JP that doesn't reach ILO minimum standards. It needs to be 40% instead of 30% after 30 years contributions. We have the guidebook, as I showed you in the very first slide, 1952. The representatives of all countries agree on this, but Indonesian standard is still lower. So the benefit of Social Security pension need to be reformed, because even you pay 30 years, you cannot probably get enough for your living. But the problem here is that most of people will not pay contribution for 30 years to the BPJS. That's a bigger problem. Because when I ask workers representative, do you have a bank savings in your bank account, 900 million? No one has such amount, 900 million. And then what's your plan? Then back to the last comment. I have a children, they will take care of me. But are you sure? You will be probably children, right? Are you sure you can support them? That's my question. So that's why I always tell our senior citizens counterparts in Jakarta, we need to bring your children to talk about the same things. So probably you don't talk about it like that. But probably you feel more obligations, but at the same time, is it feasible for you to support all of them? Another one, pension can help me, but you don't pay contributions. But even though you pay contributions, the current pension system may not support you enough, because the jaminan pension retirement age will increase every 3 years. So when you probably retire after 2043, the pensionable age will be 65 at that time. JHT pensionable age is somehow remains the same, 56. So there is a kind of inconsistency in the pension schemes in Indonesia. So we need to fix that. That's how we recommend. But what about the status quo scenario? What if there is no change in the pension, jaminan pension? How many people will actually receive pensions from BPJS when you retire? In 2060, this is our projection, there will be only 8 million older persons above JP pensionable age receive pension. That is only 14% of the entire old age populations above 65. So BPJS can make more effort, but as I said in the previous slides, probably the larger problem will be the legal challenge. Most of wage workers in the companies are not allowed to participate or voluntary. If you are self-employed, you don't have rights to participate. And another comment, I want benefits, but I don't want to pay tax or contributions. But you're from economic department, you don't think this is happening. Someone needs to pay. So I don't have to explain this. So there is a balance. If you want more benefits, someone needs to pay more, tax or contribution. Another one, I cannot afford to pay contribution. So there are a lot of resistance paying contributions. But if we compare the amount of contributions people pay in different countries in Southeast Asia, Indonesia is one of the lowest for the pension, okay? In total, a jaminan pension costs only 3% today, which is not enough in our calculation. And in Singapore, you see 37% contribution is taken from payrolls. And you see DBDC, that is a different model. I said saving model, JHT, that is DC. It's saving, your pool is small. So what you get is what you have paid. So you need to create a bigger pool only with yourself. And DB is a larger pool, so everyone contributes. Probably next generations will contribute. So this is kind of a gotoroyo, intergeneration gotoroyo. So it's a much larger pool. So the payment of contribution is a lot smaller than DC. So that's a linkage. You see DC, countries with DCs go up there, and the country with DB is relatively lower. But I want to highlight, Indonesia is one of the lowest. So I don't think this statement is valid. I cannot afford to contribute. Maybe some people, yes, there is a formula to solve the problem for some of them. I think I'm spending too much time. 10 minutes, okay. If you have more questions, I can answer more in detail. But the pension system matters, not BPJS efforts. System, pension structures, scheme designs, legal framework matters the most in terms of coverage. Okay? Why? You see the coverage, how many people receiving, how many older persons are receiving pension from Social Security? That's the question here. Brunei, Timor-Leste, all of them receive pensions from the states. I will tell you why. Thailand, almost 100%. Vietnam is catching up, but the other countries, look at Indonesia, third from the bottom. And these countries apply different pension system. But in Indonesia, only BPJS Jaminan Pension, Jaminan Hari Tua, and most of the population in Indonesia is working in self-employed or family businesses. That's why it's low. Maybe it's too small. But I can tell you why Brunei, Timor-Leste have high coverage. Because their criteria to receive pension is only age. When you become 60, you get fully tax-funded pension in Brunei, because they can have oil. Maybe Timor-Leste is the same. You cannot do this in this country. Maybe you can. I don't know how. But that's one option. Thailand have a similar arrangements. If you don't receive any other pensions, you receive. But again, the only criteria is 60 years. But the problem of these schemes is that the amount is very small, but at least you get something. Vietnam has a similar schemes as well. But if you look at the Indonesian demography, workers' compositions, you see a lot of gaps. There are 150 million working age populations in Indonesia, 120 work or looking for job as an unemployed, 35 million working age populations are out of the labor market because 29 million housewives, house husbands, most of them are housewives. They're outside of the labor market. And if you are self-employed, even though you work, your coverage is only 0.3 million in JHT. So if you don't work in the big and small and big and medium enterprises, many people don't have pension coverage in the country. So there are simply no schemes available for most people. So that is the coverage gap, the reason of coverage gap, in my view. If you're housewives, you don't have the rights to pay pensions. If you have 1 gap per year, 2 gap per year, 3 gap per years, your pension will be reduced. That's a formula. So in Japan, other countries allow house husbands to enroll in pension system as well. Somehow, paying contribution, or their husband pay, wife pays, or they themselves pay contributions, or they're fully tax funded. So there need to be triple layers at least. In Indonesia, we have a PKH, fully tax funded, to guarantee free of charge pension, but it's very small and the coverage is very small. But Timor-Leste and Brunei has 100% coverage in the first layer. Indonesia doesn't have that. So creating that part, with or without employment status, is the first step. And the second layer is the jaminan pension in Indonesia, mandatory contributory pension schemes. But the coverage is limited because the legal coverage is limited. JHT can be third layer. I can show you later, but I probably don't have time. Okay, so this is how it looks like, the Indonesian pension system today. There's a lot of gap. Jaminan Hari Tua and Jaminan pension, and the Dana pension, that's another one, company pension, corporate pension, if you work in a good company. So we need to propose something, we need to fill the gap, but probably we can discuss later in a discussion, okay? We propose three different options for the government to consider. We hand it over, but you ask me the question and I can answer that. It requires both tax funded and the contributions and increasing contributions. Last but not least, 3 minutes. Okay. Kisha asked me to explain what is informality. Informal workers, informal economy. It's kind of jargon that people don't understand, but they use. If we reviewed all the different definitions, legal definition in different countries in Asia, every country has different definitions, but they use the same word, informal. There are two separate definitions. One, informal sector enterprises. It's about companies, whether companies informal or not. Another definition is called informal employment. If employees, workers, have formal arrangement or informal arrangement. How can we define? So when you say informal sector, you talk about companies. If you say informal employment, you talk about workers or job. Basically, there is a complex labor force survey formula, but in short, one of the major criteria is the social protection contributions. Whether companies pay contributions by the law, or they pay tax, corporate tax, they register with the Kemenaka tax authority or not. That's how they define formal sector, informal sectors, and also the size of enterprises. I have more detail there later. Informal employment, similar concept, but look at workers themselves. Are you covered by JAMSOS or not? Are you paying contributions or not? So even though you work in the kind of informal sector enterprises, means your companies don't register with the government, don't pay contributions, don't register with the tax authorities, but probably you are covered by Social Security, by employers. I don't know how it happens, but it happens. Then employment can be formal. But the other way around, there is informal employment within the formal sector enterprises. Your contracts are probably, I don't know, PKWT, and your employers says you're not entitled and you are probably not covered. So there can be informal employment within the formal sector. So I have a more complex one. So if you are researchers, you can probably review. This is how the informal employments need to be regulated. I think I stop here, Pa. But if you decompose, this is the very last slide. If you decompose, you see where you can find informal employment in Indonesia. Different countries have different trends. If you see Indonesia, 47.8% of informal employment are found, employees, Green Party's employees, 47.8% of informal employment is employees. So they have employers, but they have informal employment. But the other part, 35.5%, that is self-employed. So, okay, it's challenging to cover them. But at least you see 47.8% of informal employment have employers. So probably employers are not complying, or they are legally waived their obligations, just like BPJS scheme. You can cover only voluntary basis. So changing the law definition of formal informal can probably make an impact for this 47% at least. To cover self-employed, probably we can discuss in a discussion. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Ippei, for the presentations. So yeah, to sum up, I think like we have like so many things to discuss. I know you have a lot of questions. Maybe like I can add a little bit more. We have like Kartu Lansia, Ippei, like piloting in Jakarta. And also maybe like soon in Jogja is like 600,000 per month for above 60 years old. So that's one like one of the social protections that the government currently try to do. Now you have any questions from the audience? Welcome Ibu Eni. Ibu Eni is like our secretary department. She's like on the back. Sit down in the front, Bu. And Ibu Dea as well. Please sit down with Bu Kisha. Any questions from the audience? Okay, one, two, okay, two questions.
First of all, thank you for the opportunity to meet Mr. Ippei in person. I'm very excited. And so the question, for in the background, Bank Central Asia has created one of the most richest men in Indonesia. And I find that in this bank, there is a scheme where the bonus paid for the workers are in the form of company stocks instead of hard cash. The question is, from your perspective, Mr. Ippei, is this strategy could be applied on any other company in Indonesia or even internationally? And is this sustainable strategy to run to minimize the pension risk, such as small pension coverage? Thank you.
Thank you. What's your name? Fuad. Okay. Thank you, Fuad. Please mention your name and then like maybe where you come from. Are you like undergrad student or master student? Okay. Second question. Please stand up.
Yes. Okay, so good afternoon, Mr. Ippei. My name is Christina. I'm from Indonesia, undergraduate economics student. So as you previously mentioned before, self-employed workers in Indonesia receive fewer or less social security benefits compared to the wage earners. So, for example, like self-employed workers in Indonesia do not have like JKP or JP as their social security benefits when they're unemployed or when they're old. However, in the case of Indonesia, self-employed workers takes up a pretty significant portion of the Indonesia's workforce, which is approximately about 52% of the total employed population. So my question is leading up to this. What strategies can Indonesia implement to expand their social security coverage to informal and self-employed workers who are currently make up a large portion in Indonesia's workforce? Thank you.
One more questions? No? You want to answer like the first two? Okay.
Can I put up a slide if possible? Yeah, maybe I answer the first question. It's about the investment strategies, or is that companies' pension system?
Paid bonus to the work.
Paid bonus to the workers.
Yeah. Similar to Gojek, eBay, like they give like the drivers like stocks as a pension kind of.
Okay, so I think it's about corporate retirement plans. I would say, if I'm not mistake, am I correct? It's about corporate retirement plans.
Like sometimes you give a cash, so they use a stock.
Companies, right?
Company stock.
Yeah. Okay. The first of all, social securities need to be paid by the states. So we need to differentiate here. When the companies directly transfer cash or stocks or whatever in kind, we don't consider it as a social security. First step, okay. But that companies, I don't know about the company's practice, but that's one way to probably retain the good staff members and recruit a good talents for that companies by improving their corporate welfare, in my view. And of course, that's should be good for their workers. Yeah. I cannot say much more than that on this particular investment strategy. But one, probably I can add one more point. BPJS also investor collected the contributions in the fund. And then they have regulations what they can invest in. But what they cannot invest now is the foreign bonds and foreign stocks, if I remember correctly. So all the money needs to be invested in the domestic market. I think the government will discuss this in the future, because normally in other countries, the diversification of a portfolio is quite important. But here, the law regulations restrict BPJS investment portfolio within the domestic market. So risk can be diversed by investing in other, like US markets is most likely more stable than Indonesian market. Yeah. Sorry. Thanks. So the second questions, to answer second questions, looking at the international practices, it is not possible for any countries to extend social security coverage, pension coverage by only contributory scheme like a JP or JHT. It needs to be mixed with, well harmonized, mixed, integrated with tax-funded schemes. But the problem in Indonesia now is that to get the tax-funded pension, you need to be poor. But most of self-employed are not poor, as you can imagine, because they have a job. But they are informal somehow by status. So what is missing is the bottom layer in Indonesia. I show the 3 layers, right? But we need to create the bottom layers to cover them, just like other countries. Sorry, I'm lost. About 2 minutes. Okay, I'm lost. Sorry. Yeah. For example, this is probably you don't understand. One of the easiest option is to introduce something similar to Brunei or Timor-Leste. When you become old, the state will use a tax fund and pay your pension. But to do that, the government needs to collect a lot of money, right? Because it's fully tax funded. And usually the amount of pension is very little because the government cannot provide a lot of money with a small fund, tax fund. That's one way. Because in this way, you don't have to worry about your employment status. Informal, formal, forget about it. If you become 65, you get. That's only the criteria here. And we propose this as a one option, option 2 to the government. And it costs 120 trillion rupiah per month, per year, sorry, in the initial year. That is about 25% of Bantuan Sosial budget. Quite similar amount to JKN PBI. Yeah. So that's our initial proposal. But if the government wants to start from higher age, like 75, they can get a discount, 36 trillion rupiah, which is much lower than Bantuan Sosial PBI. So we have such an option. There are more options, but like Japan's model, everyone needs to pay when they become to age 20, flat amount, it doesn't matter you're self-employed or not. If you are self-employed and you cannot pay, you can just tell the government, the BPJS, I cannot pay this month, next month. But when you don't pay, your pension will be deducted, so you don't have an incentive to do that every time. That's another option. So creating such a universal mechanism, everyone must pay or must receive is one usual approach we can take.
Yeah.
So tax funded is needed plus contribution.
Okay, thank you, Ippei, for the explanations. We have a questions actually from Zoom from Mareta Linia from Mahidol University at Thailand. Yes. So someone answered from Thailand watching us. Go ahead, Ibu Mareta.
You hear me?
Yes, good. Go ahead. Ask
Okay.
your questions, please.
Okay. Thank you for this great opportunity. So I'm originally from Indonesia, but right now I'm a student in Mahidol University in Thailand. The thing that I'm interested in this topic is we can learn from Thailand here and also from Japan, because those two countries, they are in the aged population. And right now Indonesia, this year, Indonesia just faced the aging population, which means that the older people in Indonesia is less than those who older. The proportion of those who older in compared to Thailand and Japan. And then I also interested with the linkage with the dependency ratio. So this ratio, dependency ratio, is the ratio between those who in reproductive age and those who are not in reproductive age. And also the situation in Indonesia right now, we have the demographic dividends. So more than 70% of Indonesia, they are in age 15 to 60 years old. So I think this is the beneficial for Indonesia. And also the current situation in terms of the young people in Indonesia, we just heard the news that the younger people in Indonesia, they tend to work abroad. So my question is there any impact of those who are in the younger age, they tend to work abroad, especially in Singapore, I heard before, to the situation of the social security in Indonesia? Okay. Thank you for answer. Good morning.
Thank you, Bu Marita, for the questions. Anyone else? Questions? No second questions from the Zoom? Maybe I should ask questions. Can I ask questions? I have a questions actually. This is interesting topic for me as well. Buchanan, James Buchanan, one of the economists in United States, he's like very libertarian, very far right. So he actually doesn't care or like hate social security. And then one of his comment is like social security in the United States is Ponzi scheme. At one point, like when the younger generation cannot afford it, nobody will afford it anymore, right? It will stop because it needs to be like younger generation paid for the older generation. So my question is like, what your take on this? Like, okay, we have to build social security, but then at some point maybe it's getting expensive, everything, and then you cannot like put your money on the social security, and which you cannot pay the older generations. So that's my questions. Sorry, it's just like very hard. Okay, go ahead, please, Ippei. Take your time.
Maybe I answered from your question.
Okay.
Okay, so your comment is mostly based on the sense that next generation, what will happen if the next generation cannot pay and then no one can pay? Okay, that's actually the job of actuaries to calculate the right formula for contributions. So why such situation happens? Because the contribution collected was not enough in the previous generations. So, for example, today we are discussing, I'm in a discussion all the time with workers, employers, governments. No one wants to increase contribution rates. So every year they delay, the actuarial scientific contribution rate, artificial contribution rate will increase because they delay. So the short answer is that in a kind of, we call it DB system, benefit is guarantees, defined benefit schemes. Such situation may happen if the previous generation resist and go against the increasing contributions. So it's more like a political economy issues, in my view. So generation today is refused to pay more contributions. The colleagues sitting here will pay in the future. To avoid this, like USA, one approach is to improve the JHT type of pension schemes. We don't call it pension, because pension in our sense is solidarity fund. It's a larger pool, but JHT has individual bank account, individual account. So we don't call JHT as Social Security sometimes, but the US model is more like towards strengthening that way, like 403K or something. Yeah, 401, sorry. So because what you pay there is what you will get. So you will be certain as an individual, that is how much you will get. So it depends on kind of philosophy and ideology, which countries Indonesia want to go for. You want to improve the JP, then it's kind of more like a welfare states type of countries. If you want to improve JHT, you may get closer to, for example, US type of economy. You have little obligations for the society, but you only protect yourself and family. That's two different concepts. So Indonesia is really in the crossroad now. That's maybe my short answers. The first question was about migrant workers outside the countries.
Abroad.
Yeah. I'm migrant workers here from Japan. And I'm voluntarily paying contributions to the Japanese national pension system. So I know how much I will get. If I retire now, I'm entitled to 50 million rupiah per year when I become 65. I know this because I'm paying contribution and I have history book. But you don't have this arrangement. You can probably contribute to JHT. Is that possible? I don't know. I don't remember. I cannot remember, sorry. But okay, in the future, the best case is that Indonesia improve the social security pension schemes designs up to the international level. For example, closer to Japanese model, benefit amount arrangements, etc. Then usually two countries can sign a bilateral social security agreement. So if that happens, Indonesian workers working in Japan pay contribution to Japanese pension system, but when they come back, Japanese pension system will give entitlement through BPJS. Employment. So what you pay in Japan will be counted as if you pay in BPJS. That can be possible through bilateral social security agreement currently between developed economy and developed economy. But the level of pension system here in this country and the other countries are quite different now. So the first step is to improve the pension system, social security system up to the same standards that for example, in your case, Thailand has. Then two countries can discuss the agreement. Indonesian migrant workers paying contribution to Thailand's social security offices can be counted as if they are paying contribution to BPJS if they come back to Indonesia. That is the next step, social security agreement.
All right. Thank you, Ippei, for the answer. Actually, funny story. I was considered a pension in the United States when I come back to Indonesia because I have to close my 401 because I cannot transfer to, and then they don't have any bilateral you say agreement. So they have to be closed or still open, but then you don't have contribution after that. So bank account. So my account. So yeah, it need to be like either close or like keep it open, but there's no more contribution afterwards. So there's a question from Zoom chat from Pak Nazala or Bu Nazala. Do you think in practice the formal workers are overlooked as they are both eligible for unemployment benefit? We don't have that yet. And for severance payments, especially because the current employment benefit, JKP, contributions, not really unemployment benefit, but JKP contribution is paid by the state. On the other hand, the informal workers who are generally more vulnerable are not covered. How do you see this? Do you think we need to adjust the current employment benefit scheme?
Yeah, I fully agree on this statement. We submitted also the recommendation to the Ibu Minister Manpower on Friday. You see the photos of my Twitter, so follow me.
What's the handle? At what? What's your Twitter handle? What's your Twitter handle?
On my first page, Ippei Tsuruga.
Oh, Ippei Sturuga. Okay. Please follow.
No, yeah, it is a joke, a half joke, but it's true. We have submitted the recommendation on JKP reform. One of our suggestions was to reconsider the contribution financing arrangements of JKP. Of course, it's the country's choice, but in my view, it is quite unfair for self-employed paying tax and indirectly support the unemployed workers from formal enterprises, probably because the government is paying 0.22% of contributions to JKP per employee. So that means people who are dismissed from Astra International is actually subsidized by agricultural farmers. For example, we don't know the linkage because the government uses a tax fund. It's not earmarked, unlike a contribution, right? Government need to collect contributions. And one of the statements I still remember, the Ibu Minister Finance in April last year, when the ministry increased the VAT, value-added tax, to 11%, the journalist asked the question, how are you going to use this money? And one of the response was, we will improve the PBA, subsidies to Bantuan Sosial, probably including JKP subsidies, right?
Yeah.
Because the budget source is the same. So if VAT is used to pay a government contribution to JKP, what is happening here is that you are artificially, your babies are artificially paying through baby powders or diapers. So it's important to think about the money source when we talk about tax funded schemes, in my view. So I agree with this adjustment needed. And more importantly, the JKP need to be improved in many different ways. We didn't talk about it, but PKWT workers, fixed-term employees cannot receive unemployment benefit if they reach the expiry of PKWT. But that's the most of the cases for PKWT workers when they lose job. So there may be a lot of adjustment needed. So please visit our website and read the full recommendations we submitted. We uploaded the same level of information on the website that we gave to Ibu Minister.
Yeah, thank you for the answer, Ippei. So that's interesting to see how we create imbalance. Like good policy will lead could be imbalance between informal and then formal worker. Any questions from the Zoom or from the forum here? Ibu Eni, want to ask questions? No? Bukisha? Yeah. Go ahead, Bukisha. We have 20 more minutes.
All right. Okay. Okay. Thank you, Mas Wisnu. Right. Actually, I think I've done several works with Ippei as well, but still Ippei, I think it's a good opportunity that we extend our discussion in this forum. So going back to your points regarding that it's not enough just to have the contribution base program or contribution-based system, but it needs to be complemented by the tax-based system. So I was wondering whether the proposed reform of social protection in Indonesia, can it be included like some sort of an inclusion of JP or pension into the PKH, for example? So it doesn't have to be two separate bansos and jamsos, but as you mentioned, like in international standard, is all the same, social protection or the other terminologies. But in here, yeah, jamsos is referred to insurance, whereas bansos is the one with assistance. So is it possible, like, well, yeah, why don't we just include everything in one program? So it's just less hassle for the recipients as well, that they don't have to think, oh, I have to pay contribution if I wanted to get, a payment in my old age. But now I also need to receive, PKH from the government, which I have to maintain several requirements. So yeah, I think that's one. And secondly, I think this is also something that I would raise concerns or issues for our audience today, who are mostly students who might be in the next year or two, might be entering the labor market. So one of my experience, if I can share, that I didn't know there was a different, definitions or concepts between informal versus formal sector and informal versus formal employment, which then becomes important because apparently I was working in formal sector, but I was informal employee. So that was the reason I wasn't covered by several worker social protection. But today, I don't know how many of these guys in the next year or two would like to be formal employee. Like, they wanted to work from everywhere, which might makes them like freelancers or having multiple employers, which by definition, they may or may not be covered by social protections. And they might, I don't know, maybe we should ask some of them. I mean, they might refuse to pay contribution. Why should I pay contribution if I can use the entire of my wage for traveling, for example, because I have to work from Bali, I have to work from coffee shops, for example. So what would be the implications, or I don't know if you have any projections, that what if not only that the kids refuse to support their parents, but also our younger generations refuse to help the government to pay or to contribute in that gotong royong system. All right, I think that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Bukisa, for the questions. Go ahead, Ippei. If you need help, I can help you a bit from the government perspective.
You can also help me. Yeah, maybe I will go from the easy one. Yes, I think first of all, the reason why younger generations want to stay in self-employed is that not only because they want to have free time, but also they don't see the benefits of social security really. Because my family, I showed you my family trees, my family education, probably most of the family in Japan, is that you should pay social security contribution when you become 20 years old, because that's how, my parents are receiving pensions. So they know the meaning of pension and they tell us why it is important. And one of the very good recommendations from my mother at that time was that if you work in the companies, your companies will actually pay your contributions. In the case of Vietnam, pension contribution is 22% of your salary, 22. Indonesia is 8.7. In Vietnam, 22%. Who will pay 22? 8% from your payslip, 14% from your employers. So employer cannot deduct 14%, right? So it means you only pay 8%, but you actually paying 22% in total because employers are paying for you 14%. So you see the benefit here. What you get is not actually what you get. You're actually getting much more because employers are paying contributions for you in addition to your salary. So that was my mother's suggestion, recommendations. If you work in a company, you don't have to pay 22% because your employer will pay you. But here in Indonesia, probably you don't see it in that way because you don't see it's a lot of money anyway. You avoid then, and you don't. What if you pay? You probably don't get much for pension. The reason why we always talk about pension here is that the pension is one of the most kind of burdensome benefit for countries and then also individuals, and then the most expensive schemes other than health. That's why we talk about it. And then if you work in the companies, normally in other countries, you get a lot of incentive because your employers will pay. That's why people want to work in the company. But here, there is disincentive. If you work in the company, you know, pension amount is still quite low. So improve the pension, increase the contribution rates. That can probably attract more workers, more young people to work in the companies because they see real benefits. Maybe not, people are not convinced here, but that's how we normally think in other countries. But the problem is the benefit is too low in these countries to talk about this now. The next question is what? Oh yeah, Kisha's another point is that then apply mandatory legal requirements for workers in companies and then apply penalties. That's only the way other countries do. But again, that's the question, you know. If someone pay and the others don't have to pay, it's not Social Security anymore. It's a private pension. If you have a choice, it's not Social Security. Social Security pension need to be mandatory for all citizens or certain categories like wage workers. You cannot avoid. If you avoid, it means you're, you know, damaging someone's profit benefits in the future. So it's kind of a serious court case. It becomes a serious court case in Japan. Like, you know, your bank account will be frozen by the government, and the government take money from your bank accounts, and then your bank account can be released again. Something like, if you don't have a bank account, probably your house will be held, for example. It's an extreme case after probably many times of warning, right? So apply the mandatory coverage and make it really clear what is mandatory for who and enforce it. That's only the way Social Security works. But here, still, enforcement is low, penalty is low, benefit is low, contribution is low. So we need to improve many things at the same time to make it right. If Indonesia goes to welfare states country, right? That's the assumption. The first question, again, integration of social assistance insurance. Yes, I think it's possible, and then that is needed, Kisha, absolutely needed. And PKH provides old age benefits as well, maternity benefit as well. Probably many people don't know here, but if you have poor households and if you have old members, you get the top up. In this way, PKH provides some benefits. So it means some budgets are already spent for old age benefit purposes there. So we need to probably shift this budget as a PBI, and then create the bottom layers. Vietnam, for example, in Vietnam cases, they are moving towards so-called pension-tested schemes. It's technical terminologies. How it works is actually when you become certain age, let's say age 20, wage employees or self-employed, it doesn't matter. You must pay contributions, 22% of your income. That's the Vietnam system. And when you retire, your pension is still not enough because your earning is too low, and then PBI comes in to fill the gap with the minimum benefit. So you get at least minimum amount as long as you register. In Japan, as I said, when you become 20 years old, as a citizen, you're obliged. If you don't pay, your bank account will be frozen. And but you can always tell the local authority, I cannot pay this month because it's a really difficult time. I can tell that. Then the government can still pay half of benefits for you. So you get still like a 0.5 month contribution histories for free. So the Japan model is a benefit subsidy, not contribution subsidy. And if you are poor, you cannot pay, you can always claim. So in this way, Japan merged like a PKH and the pension schemes in this way. So there are many formula, and we are proposing 3 different cases, including what I explained here.
Thank you so much, Ippei, for the insight. I think if I might add for the government program is sometimes the most efficient and then the most cost-effective programs hard to be merged because there's a political aspect of it. Because everyone in political party want to give someone to the people so they can claim it when they are like re-elected next year or something like that. Oh, we have these programs, so from our party. So that's the difficult thing. And we have a multi-party, not like maybe US only have 2 party and then they can just like become government and also the control, something like that. We have multi-party and then you have to distribute the social assistant among the parties so they can claim that's their programs. So that's a difficult situation that we face. Do we have time, Bukisha, or we can just conclude and then, okay. Since already like time out, I'm on the back, so we can conclude. I think like the message from Ippei that I wrote is pensions or like old age social program is the most expensive program ever, like because it could be like 25 years, could be because like medicines we can live until like 100 years. So you have to think about it right now because that's the urgency, because we have like a bigger population in Indonesia and then it's getting aging. We're in aging situation, right? In aging situation, the urgency actually is there. And also, in order to make sure it's not Ponzi scheme, like a Buchanan say, we have to calculate correctly, like how much contributions that we have to invest in order to have not a loss or like a lack of money, like a funds in the futures. And lastly, I think like one of the keyword that I want to highlight is we need the risk pooling in the futures for the longevity risk, like I just mentioned. Like maybe we're getting older and we're getting healthier. So maybe like Bu Sri Mulyani actually pretty upset, like a lot of civil servants live longer. And then what she wants to do is like, okay, how about give a pension one shot rather than like monthly, because it's actually we are getting healthier. So it's getting longer, people getting longer of the pension as a civil servant. Thank you once again, Ippei, for the insight. For that, we conclude the talks. Maybe you want to talk with Ippei. I already follow Ippei from Twitters. I just check Ippei Twitters and then just follow after that. Follow Ippei, and then maybe like Ippei has some emails that you can send regarding the ILO and also what they did in ILO. Thank you so much for coming.